Hi.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
Yeah, good.
So I'm really excited to have a conversation with you in this wonderful studio that you are quite familiar with. And
Yeah.
we've known each other for about a year now. And I wanted to start with a little bit of your background and also um, the conversation that we had about a year ago of the vision that you had to create this very space that we're sitting in. So let's start a little bit first with how you kind of got into the world of podcasting, media, and videography.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I moved to the UK back in '99, and I started working for kind of data analytics companies specializing in digital marketing, data and web analytics and that kind of thing. And I did that for a long time. And I also did some semi-professional photography in the back. So I did a lot of event coverage and stuff like that for some people who had PR companies and that kind of thing. So I always had a little bit of kind of creativity going in the background. Not that data and data analytics in particular can't be creative, but we might get on to
We
that.
definitely will get on to that very interesting topic.
Um, but yeah, and anyway, I'd been doing that for a long time. And then I was doing some consulting with a smart city project and working with local government. And that's when ChatGPT came out. So at the end of that was November of 2022. And by February of 2023, there were people in the office that I worked in who had lost all of their business already,
As early as that.
as early as that. Um, and I was just like, wow, okay. And to be fair, they were copywriters, so it was very kind of language focused, which most of the stuff that's AI today is or language models or was in the beginning. And so yeah, I was like, this is going to be carnage. And so I thought, okay, I know a bunch of people, from agencies and all sorts of stuff, loads of creative teams, that sort of thing, who are actually people working in that industry. And I just thought it'd be cool to have a podcast to maybe just talk about that because everybody has a podcast. And so that's how I got my start.
So that's interesting. So your pivot was related, or well, very closely linked to the surge of AI. So although your background was in that, you obviously saw an opportunity
Yeah.
and created the podcasting world, which is another stream of what you do as well. I know is manage at numerous different podcasts as well as produce them. Um, and since we've already hit on the topic of AI, that only took about a minute and a half. Um,
I can talk a lot if you want.
we can we might need an extra episode just to cover that, but I do definitely want to cover AI. So what is it that you're covering specifically in that podcast that is related, I guess, to the creative world of what you do? Because as you mentioned, I think it's fair to say there's nobody that's going to be unaffected by the incredible revolution of AI that we've seen, but kind of keeping it specific to anyone listening that is wanting to look at video or podcasting and how AI is impacting that. Have you got any kind of insights on that?
Well, yeah, I think in the beginning it was very much about, nobody knew what was going to happen. And I think what we've seen over time is that it's picked up a lot of what I would say is like the bottom end of the market. So, kind of startups and small companies and people who didn't have a lot of marketing budget to begin with and were really stretching to pay for things like professional copywriters and that sort of thing. AI has been really good for them because they can get, okay, it's not exactly the same. Like an AI text is never going to be the same as a human professional copywriter. I'm just going to throw that out there. But for somebody who, you know, has challenges doing it themselves and aren't confident doing it themselves, it's still better than they can do. And that's all they need. And that's all they want. And so that's where AI really has started, right? This was even before really, the video engines and the image engines. I mean, Midjourney was probably the very first popular image generator that was AI. And it was quite wonky in the beginning as well. So you couldn't even really rely on it. So it was mainly text.
Mhm.
And I think that's where, that's where this all started. I wanted to focus particularly on the creative industries because I saw that's, copywriting and all that, the all the language skills, the writing copy for websites, all that sort of stuff. Those are all, in my mind, they're all creative jobs. And even though they're in tech, technically a lot of them. And so I wanted to start off focusing specifically on that. And so that's in the very beginning, my show was Creatives with AI. I mean, that was the name of it, and it was focused on that. I think by episode 7, I'd had on someone from the military already. So the creative focus
Stretch.
Yeah, it didn't last. But what came out in the very beginning was that this is going to touch everybody, and it's not just creatives. It's going to touch everybody who's working. And that was really where the focus moved to. So it's now called With AI FM. And I have several sort of topics and themes that I cover. So a big theme that we talk about is women with AI, because a lot of the jobs that AI is affecting are heavily populated by women. And so I think women have a particular challenge fighting AI because a lot of those roles are doing it. But I also think that there are a lot of advantages where women could use AI to their advantage to help them in their careers and stuff to be more competitive.
Exactly. And I think that's the debate around kind of AI is here to take over, which I know many people kind of are rightly concerned about. Um, I personally think, if you look back in history, and I think this is probably the biggest wave of its surge, obviously that we've had, but the Industrial Revolution, I would imagine people were having similar types of concerns, and it meant a huge shift in how people worked, but humans have still survived it. So I guess what's your experience of seeing how people's roles have evolved with AI as opposed to necessarily being completely taken over, with the exception, which you've mentioned of, and I've seen it before in some roles where immediately all of the copywriters got cut. Um, and sadly, unless that particular system of AI is trained properly, what you start seeing is a lot of noise, and we're all seeing it all over the platforms and social media in particular. So yeah, in your experience, what's the opportunity there versus the threat?
Um, Look, AI can help anybody. It can really help people do a lot of things. I think what we're starting to do is figure out what are the best uses for it. And different tools have different skill sets, which I've kind of always said from the beginning. I think where we're going to end up ultimately is I think we're going to end up with one AI that's going to be like your conversational AI, and it's going to be the one that you talk to. And so it's going to be very, very good at conversation, language. It's going to feel very natural. It's going to feel like talking to another person. But if you ask it, I don't know, to solve a physics question, it doesn't know physics. What it knows is conversation. So what it will do is it will have a connector to a specialist physics AI. So it will go off and go, oh, that's a physics question. I'm going to go over here and ask this AI for the answer. It will get the answer, and then it will feed that back to you as the interface in between. And if you want to play chess, it'll go to the chess playing one. And if you want something around, I don't know, marketing, it'll go to the marketing AI. And if you want, right? So that's in tech terms, that's called a federated model. So what you have is you have a layer sitting at the top that has access to all these special pots of information, and then it pulls all that together. So it doesn't have to keep going, and you don't have to duplicate the same information in every database,
Yep.
right? Like you have individual stores, but you have the one controller that pulls it all together. And I think that's ultimately what we're going to see. And then it will be able to, it will be able to effectively answer any question for anybody on any topic. And it will be better than 99.9% of the people in the world at doing that.
Yeah, because the speed at which it learns
Yeah.
is, yeah, not one we can compete with.
Yeah.
Where within brand mixology, we come into kind of the mix is very much that support and advocacy, I guess, of AI. I think it is an incredible opportunity for efficiency. I think where I'm seeing some people perhaps go wrong with it is that over reliance on it. And I think the sweet spot is where you use AI for that efficiency, but not forget the importance of the human side.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd like to just touch on that a little bit, especially in relation to kind of video and content,
Yeah.
because with AI, there are numerous platforms now. We've talked about copywriting already, and I think that's the one, you're right, that most people will just be like, write me 12 posts for LinkedIn, it'll do it in 3 seconds. You could just copy and paste them, and many people do, and
Yeah.
we see the results. And we're seeing more video production being done through AI as well. Um, and appreciate that there are some smaller businesses for whom either having video produced or edited by AI has cost-effective benefits. What's number one, the downside to that? And number two, where would you? Well, let's start with that. Actually, let's do one. What would you say the downside is to that,
But
especially for a smaller business on a budget?
yeah, what's been interesting about the video AI is that there was just an article recently that came out, and one of the major studios has tried to really integrate using AI into its workflow and whatever, and they've essentially come back and said that they can't do it. So, for a serious business at scale that needs to, that thinks that they can use AI in their workflow and they can use it to start doing video and all that, and to enhance the stuff that they're doing with video at the minute, it's not there yet. For smaller organizations, I can see where it could be helpful, but I think, I don't know if you've seen it, but YouTube is now awash with millions of videos that are all AI. And so what's happening is people are writing stories using AI, and then they're plugging it into an AI with a voice model, and then that's reading it, and they're putting the text on with some AI generated, B-roll in the background that's loosely related to what the text says. And then they're just churning this stuff out, and they're just pushing out thousands of it. Like there is a company, I saw an article, and they said they've set up 3,000 podcasts, and they're pushing out 5,000 podcast episodes a week.
That's
It's
insane.
all AI.
That's
All of it's
insane.
AI. So they've programmed all of this stuff to be AI. The thing is it has no personality, right? And this gets back to why we do video, right? And why we have a studio and why we, why now?
Because I want to
This
feel
is
that
the
there's
question.
always going to be a
Yeah.
space for it, and that AI isn't going
Yeah.
to take over something that is so probably the most powerful way of connecting media-wise is obviously video, and all the platforms favor it, and for all the reasons that we know, connectivity. So so yeah, carry on with kind of where that space is, um and how businesses should be leveraging it, especially when there's so much noise.
Yeah.
Like if there's a brand out there putting 5,000 podcast episodes, I can see that you might get a small business say, well, I'm struggling to get one out a month.
Yeah.
How do you compete? So does that then become about quality?
It's about you, right? People buy from people at the end of the day, particularly in smaller businesses. Yeah, fine. If you want to, if you need to buy an external hard drive, you're probably going to go to Amazon to buy that because that's the cheapest place you can get it. But if you want to buy a wedding ring, you're not going to go online and buy a ring, right? You're going to go to shops, and you're going to go shop around. And where you're going to probably settle is you're going to settle with the people that dealt with you in the best way, or the people that you liked and you got on with. Even if that, I don't know why I chose. I know why I chose a ring.
I know what you did.
But Lorraine was just the first person that came to mind. But or a kitchen. It could be a kitchen as well, right? You're going to go look at kitchens, and there's loads of different places to go. But the place you're going to settle on is the person that you trust and the person that you kind of get on with. And that is the power of video. And that's the power of good video as well. And I know we want to talk about quality, the
Yeah.
quality aspect as well.
Well, I guess it's both. It's where is it about the actual quality and where is it about we've talked about this before, the actual
Yeah.
content and the message of the video, and
It's
where would you weigh them up?
it's 80% storytelling, 20% quality. Now, my business partner might argue that a little bit, but story at the end of the day, it's you, it's your personality, it's you getting out there, it's people learning who you are. And that's the power of podcasting, whether it's audio only or audio and video. Of that 20%, audio is probably 80% of that as well. So people really need to be able to hear you, and they need it to be clear, and they need it to sound good.
Mhm.
The look of it is actually not that important. It's better if it looks great, and that's where you can start to set a little bit of your image. So you choose your set and your, where you want to be, and kind of, what clothes you want to wear and stuff like that can factor into that. But at the end of the day, it's the story that you're telling and who you are, and it's a way to connect with your customers, right? And that's the power of it at the end of the day that you don't get from AI. Sure, AI can go off and it can write some marketing copy, and there have been. So I was at the AI summit a couple of years ago, and a lady came on stage from one of the news agencies, and they're the ones who actually write all the news, like Reuters and stuff, that they actually send all the news stories out to all the different newspapers and TV channels, and that's where they get their news, basically. And she was talking about they did a big test of AI. So they had AI writing the headlines, and the editors didn't like it. And so the editors ended up rewriting them all. And they're like, these headlines are terrible. We can't use this. AI sucks. We can't. It's terrible. We can't use it. And so that was the story that she told on stage. And when she came off stage, like being a data person and understanding how sort of data analytics works, I said to her, just quietly off to the side, I said, did you actually run a test to see which performed better? And she said, yeah, we totally did. She's like, we tested it in the background anyway. And I said, what were the results? And she said the AI copy was 73% better at engagement than the human copy. So even though the editors didn't like it and they thought that it didn't sound human, that it didn't sound good, it actually performed better than what they were doing. And the lesson in that is for things like marketing copy, sometimes AI, if you ask it to write a highly converting title, it's going to give you a title that you are probably going to go, ugh, I don't like that. But it probably will perform better than the one that you write, because it has the sum. It has the sum of all knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got the ability to get that, which actually is, as humans, we will often go with our gut. That sounds better, but we base it, and there's a big space for that. And I'm a massive believer in going with the gut, but sometimes you just need to go with the data. And again, the mix of the two is.
I mean, I've been fighting this battle for years, right? Like we've been doing data analytics of websites for years, and the thing I've had my own startup company. Obviously, I have my own studio now, but for the past 20 years, I've been working with small companies and large companies, going out, doing things like testing different colors on websites, different typefaces, different messages, different styles, all that sort of stuff. We've been doing that for years and years and years. Like, this isn't anything new. And what always makes me laugh is it's the same thing over and over. It's like you get somebody, you'll get a startup founder, and they'll go, oh, I really like purple, so I'm going to make my website purple. And I'm like, yeah, but do your customers like purple? And they're kind of like, yeah, but this is the image that I want for the company. And I'm like, no, the image you want for the company is the one that your customers like and your customers are going to engage with. You are not your website. Your website should be useful to your customers, not to you. And that's a really difficult lesson sometimes to learn. So how does all this relate to AI, and how does all this come back to, using video and marketing and all that sort of stuff? Again, I think some of the AI copy is really good. So where you and how you should implement AI, I think, in your video and your audio and your website and all the stuff that you do is give it your ideas and ask it for outlines. That's really where it's powerful. And say, what are all the things that I need to consider if I want to write an article about this? And it'll give you a nice bullet point list of things that you should think about. Then take that and go off and make your content. Don't have it write it for you, but have it give you the common themes and the stuff that you don't want to forget. Because a lot of times I'll write something and then I'll put it in and say, what do you think about this? Did I forget anything? And it'll say, oh, well, what about this? And what about that? And I'm like, oh yeah, geez, I didn't even think about that.
Those things. I mean, I quite like often asking it to then adopt the role of, and I might think of a particular expert in a field and say, adopt that role and now critique it. First of all, bullet point the critiques, and then say, now can you rewrite it or redo this piece of work based on that? So I think so much of it is about the prompting and the training. When I work with clients and create their own GPTs, I upload as much information as I possibly can, and not just about the product and the company itself, but about the actual. Because I typically work direct with founders, the founders themselves. I try and upload as much transcripting as I can so that they really understand their tone of voice. And then the power is in the brief, which I tend to voice note actually. And sometimes that it might be like a 5-minute like brain dump of this is exactly what I need you to do. And I think that's where the quality can be incredible in terms of what you can get, but it requires the prompting to be right. And I think that's the gap that's maybe missing with many people that perhaps obviously don't have a background like you and I do in understanding story and brand marketing, that will just say, do it for me.
But ask it for the prompt.
And ask it for, So to ask it to give you the prompt, but it may not necessarily be able to make it specific enough to that brand.
But tell it, just talk to it. This is the thing, and this is another thing that they've worked out over time is that the people who are most successful using AI are people who are much older and much younger. It's the people in the middle who actually struggle a little bit more with it, because the people in the middle, think of it like middle managers or middle career people, stuff like that. Like, you're bringing your own set of knowledge and you think that your knowledge is better than what the computer is. And so you're being extremely specific. Whereas kids just ask it questions, and older people just ask it questions and say, what about this? And then lets it kind of do its thing without constraining it so much. So so I set up an agent. I hadn't done any of the agentic AI stuff, which means it'll just go off and do tasks for you automatically and like do whole things. And I just had it turned on in my ChatGPT, so I thought I'll try it. So what I set it up to do is, what I wanted it to do was go and search the web. I wanted it to find articles about studios and, why video is, good to use and all that sort of stuff. Because again, this is the type of content that we like to put out. And I said, go and find like the top 3 articles that you can find, but I want it to be really well researched. I want it to be very backed up and factual. And I want articles that actually have practical tips. I don't want just kind of opinion pieces, blah, blah, blah. And I said all this, and I want it to run every day. And I want you to automatically put it into a Google Sheet. And I want you to include links to the original articles and blah, 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 right? All this stuff. So I basically said all of that. And then I said, take all of that, ask me any questions if you're not clear on something, and then create the prompt that I put into the agent to go off and do that for me, because I wasn't sure what to put in. So literally it went away and thought for like 5 minutes and then came back and, asked me a couple of questions for clarifying. And then I answered those. And then it said, here's the prompt and you can copy and paste this in. So I copied and pasted it in. And now that thing runs every day. And when I wake up in the morning, I can open my Google Doc and there's 3 new articles in there that I can go and look at. It has a short summary of basically what's the TLDR of the article. And then I then decide, do I like that article or not? And if I want to do it, then I go and write a post and put it on LinkedIn. But it will go and do that. But the point of all that is I had no idea how to write a prompt that would accurately get it to do what I wanted it to do. So I just asked it to write its prompt.
Brilliant.
And it's those sorts of things that it's very, very good at. There are other tools if you're a software engineer and you want to develop your own app and you have this idea that you've always wanted to do. There are tools out there, not ChatGPT, but there are other tools that are really, really good at doing that. So you can literally say, I have an idea for an app that will, I don't know, put myself on the spot now. I have an idea for an app that will help me um, surface the long tail of posts. So let's just say I've got 150 episodes of my podcast. I want to resurface some of those old episodes, right, and push those out because I don't want them to just totally disappear. And I think some of that may be relevant. So I want a tool that will just a little software script that will basically go through. It might search the current news of today or the last week, and then it will say, do I have any shows that talk about any of those topics? And if it does, tell me what show number that is and give me a little bit of information about why that links into recent news and why I may want to do that. So that may be a script or something, and it's like I might want a Python script or a little piece of software to do that. I can go to a tool and tell it that's what I want, and it will literally write all the code for you and make like a mobile app. So I could go, oh, okay, those are my old episodes. I can just click that one and it'll push it out. And do you know what I mean?
This is an amazing way of kind of, I guess, repurposing
Yeah.
content to bring it back to kind of you and your studio and the
But
actual
it's more about the building of
creation.
the software, not what it does.
Yeah,
But that's just an example of something that you may want a small bit of software to help you in your business for a very specific problem that you have, right? And you can use the AI to do it. And so these are where you can, even as a small business owner or a medium-sized business who maybe doesn't have the resources to hire an entire team of developers, you can still get some of that stuff done using AI, which is much more cost effective.
and I think it's interesting that there's perhaps not enough awareness about just how much you can use AI for. And I think most people are probably still in the infancy of using it to do its copy. If we're talking about kind of, within small businesses, I've also seen it used really effectively for lead generation. So you type in your and this isn't ChatGPT, it was another platform. I forget the name of it now, but you can. I did test it in GPT, and actually, it does it pretty well as well. And with the right prompting, it is important to be really specific who your ideal client is. So you give it a really good brief on that. Again, you can ask it if you've been speaking with it a lot to actually define your ideal client, and then give it whatever other criteria you want. It might be geographical location, if that's important to the business, and any other things, and then basically ask it to produce a spreadsheet of all of the people you can do outreach for, and potentially even start writing the emails for that outreach. So it's kind of like like a LinkedIn sales navigator on steroids, because it just does it for you instantly, and it can be really specific to the client you want. Whereas other tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator is great, but it doesn't necessarily have the ability to research the clients in the same way, so that you're getting a really defined list. So there's so many different ways in which it can be used to kind of support that content. Um, but I'm really keen to get your expertise on kind of I suppose, the video production side of things. And obviously there is the opportunity to come and use a studio like this, which is brilliant, because that quality is there. And we touched a little bit on the kind of quality versus story. But I remember you saying to me a few weeks ago, if you had to put sort of, you were talking specifically about podcasts actually, but I think this is content in general. And you said the quality of the conversation is number one. So that's whether it's a conversation or whether it's a I don't know, face to camera, whatever it may be. So what it is that you're actually talking about, the content. And then I think you said audio was second and video third. Again, I think there's someone in the room who may have their own views on that, but we can have a separate conversation on that.
I don't know. We could ask him.
We could ask him. We could ask him. He's. I think he might have left
He's
the room.
producing, you know. No. I thought, look, when Angus and I have talked about this quite a lot. And I think, when we go out and we talk to people, we do testimonials on site, or we're recording, founders or people who run businesses, and they want to talk about like, at the end of the day, it's the story. Even if we're going out and we're, recording, doing a motorsport show, it's not, okay, people want to see the cars, but that's not why people watch. People watch because one driver runs another driver off the track, and then they come back in and they have an altercation in the pits. It's the emotion, it's the story that goes behind it, right? That's what people always focus on, whether it's a film, whether it's a TV show, whether it's your podcast or your commercial that you're doing for your company, right? That's the bit that people really buy into.
So with that in mind, it certainly used to be the case that in social media in particular, content that felt very raw, organic on your phone actually performed better because it naturally lends itself to a social media platform. That's what it was originally designed for. Would you say it's fair to say that because there's so much volume now, because I'm now starting to see, especially, and that was especially the case during COVID when there was no option but to use your own phones. But more recently, I'm seeing more and more quality produced videos, and I'm seeing more and more podcasts being done in studios versus on online. To what extent should a small business owner be thinking, actually, it is important in the early stages to invest in that quality in order to stand out, even if my story is incredible? Do you think it is fair to say that the platforms are favouring now more of that quality, or if you assume the story is going to be brilliant anyway, is it something that small businesses should be investing in, or do you think it's still okay to have the organic? Does it still perform?
I think there's a couple notes in that. One, I think don't underestimate the amount of effort it takes to make a video look like it's not formal, right? That actually can take a lot. Yeah, that can take a lot of effort. And if you've tried to do it, you might record something 20, 30 times because you haven't got it the way you want it to make it look casual, like it's off the cuff, right? There are some of the biggest podcast shows in the world that are on YouTube. Again, thinking of video, or if they put the video on Spotify or whatever, a lot of those, they look very casual, like, oh, I'm just recording something in my house. It's like, yeah, that's a house, but it's a £5 million house that you're sitting in that already exactly. And that's a full production that's costing 20, 25 grand per episode, right? And you've got a crew of 10 people are working on that to make it look like you're just sitting in your living room and having a chat. So first of all, there's a lot, on those big shows and stuff like that, there's a lot more that goes into it. Secondly, why go into a studio versus not? And I'm going to turn this around a little bit and ask you a question. Because I've seen you as guests on other shows a few times. We've recorded, you on other people's shows, and now you're hosting your own. Do you feel more, are you more present and kind of alert and on your game when you're in a studio versus when you're at home?
100%.
So that's
100%. And I don't think you can be, I work almost entirely remotely. My clients are all over the place. So I absolutely advocate the brilliance that we can run businesses online these days is incredible for so many reasons. It's that's an entire podcast, never mind an episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
But can you replicate the human connection online? in a two-dimensional setting versus this, never in a million years. And I was very keen, and I spoke to you about this, to ensure that the first few episodes I recorded were in person before I will absolutely be doing some of my episodes online as well, if nothing else, to to avoid some of the geographical limitations. But to answer your question, the preparation that went into this, the professionality and the connection, I don't think can be replicated online.
It's a whole different thing. And particularly if you're putting money behind it as well. So why use a studio? If, for people out there who are listening and you're thinking about, oh, do I just record something? Do I use Riverside or Zoom and I just record a chat? Fine. If that gets you started, then do it, right? Because done is better than perfect. So get started, start having the conversations. Absolutely do that. If you want to record talking head videos using your mobile phone and stuff like that, absolutely. But the reason that you come into a studio is because you're paying money. So now you've got real skin in the game. You can't spend many happy hours going over stuff. So what you do is you prepare. So you come better prepared, right? You've really thought about what you want to do. You sent me a great questionnaire. You outlined all the questions and said, these are the topics we want to talk about, and these are the things, and blah, blah, blah. So what that enabled you to do is prepare yourself and not just the guest. And so you come in and you sit down and you're dressed nice and you're sitting up and right, you're fully engaged, and that makes a massive difference. And that is what's different. I think a big part of what's different of why you want to come into a studio type environment versus just sitting at home and doing something yourself. Because
the other thing for me also is just I can focus on the conversation and the outfits, let's be honest, and the outfits. Yeah, exactly. But at home, I then have to worry about the tech and the Wi-Fi and the cats coming in, and it's my home environment, and it's just not the same as being able to come in here, have two amazingly qualified professionals that are just taking care of everything so that I can focus on what this is about, which is
But you come in and you sit down and there's lights up here and there's cameras all over the place, but you raise your game. It causes you to raise your game. And I think that's a big part of it as well. Even if we rock up to your house with, 2 cameras and some lights and stuff like that, all of a sudden, now that's okay, this isn't home anymore, right? This is okay, now this is serious. And I think that really helps people. And
that impacts so what that's impacted so far is the preparation, the feel, the connectivity. Do you think it translates to better content longer term? When I think that most business owners will be thinking return on investment, that lovely ROI word. Yes, there is not only an investment into the hiring of the production, but also the post-production side of things. Do you think that then has an impact, I guess, to the original question, when that goes out on whatever platform it goes out on versus the more organic, raw content?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I have some strong opinions about remote working as well. As you
You
know,
don't have strong opinions about anything. What you're talking about?
not a strong opinion.
No.
But I think what was really interesting, sorry, there is a point to this and I will get to it in a second, but I'm just going to take a step back. What was really interesting during COVID is everybody's like, oh, hey, we can work from home. And it works really well. And, for those businesses that could carry on, okay, physical retail businesses and restaurants and stuff like that struggled massively. But stuff like digital marketing companies and all that sort of stuff, we just continued working, right? It didn't make any difference to us, really. And in fact, we all went, hey, this is amazing. We can just work from home. What we're finding now, though, is that isn't working as well. And why is that? I think the reason is because remote works if you already have a relationship with someone. So the reason it worked in the beginning is because we had all worked with each other and we already had real relationships, in-person relationships with everyone. So when we took it online, it was just like a phone call, and it wasn't that big of a deal to then migrate to working remotely. Where the problem started to come in is when we had new people come in that we'd never met in person, right? And that relationship that you have online with someone isn't the same as working with someone every day and going to lunch with them and going and having a coffee with them and having a laugh with them at work and getting pissed off with them at work. And
100%, because there's organic conversations that happen in an
yeah,
office environment, especially for younger generations, and we are definitely moving into a completely different topic.
no, but
Is
there's a point.
is so yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
So you know what I mean? So with your shows, this is what I was going to get to is I think when I mean, physical, okay, fine. If you need to talk to someone that's in the US, then fine, you've got to do that remote, most likely, right? But if it's someone that can come in, I would say if you're talking to someone that you already know, do that one remotely. And if you're talking to someone that you don't know very well, do that one in person. So if you're going to do the studio time, get the people in that you don't actually know that well and use your studio time for them. Because the other thing is it's going to up their game as well. So you're both going to be better, and you're going to be able to have that in-person relationship, and it's easier.
And the other benefit I see to it is this day and age, people are obviously, we're all busy, everyone's busy, and sometimes you might want to meet with people, and some people might be very open to have a coffee, but it can be quite difficult to get people's time. But to actually say, let's chat over a podcast episode, get to know that person in that way that actually somebody then gains something from it, it can really help relationship building as well. So I think there's definitely that. And I think, yes, you can do that online, but it's, yeah, I mean, I think we're agreeing on the same point around that. So, so just to kind of wrap things up a little bit, I just want to kind of really bring it back to Ryan Studios and just to how I started this conversation, which was roughly about a year ago. You and I met in a coffee shop that I shall not name because they already have enough clientele. And but I am seeing them most mornings, and they know me by name, and they know what my order is, which is quite bad. And you talked about the vision that you had about what you wanted to create, which is exactly this, and you've been able to really create that, and it's been open for about 6 months now, I think. Early summer you opened.
We're in month 4.
So just tell us a little bit about, because I think so many people have that vision for something, and they can be logistical things that get in the way, but very frequently it's our own beliefs and habits that kind of get in the way. And I've no doubt there's been numerous challenges, but you have achieved your dream already. Just talk me through that kind of that journey and some of the challenges that you've overcome.
Um, I can sum it up, I think, quite nicely and this isn't my expression. And my ex-father-in-law used to say this all the time, and it wasn't his expression either, but Lady Luck won't dance with you if you're not on the dance floor.
Mm.
And I think if you have a goal for anything, literally doesn't matter what it is. It can be to open a studio, it can be to grow your business, it could be to have multiple locations, like, I don't know, live in I don't know, St. Lucia and, whatever.
That would be nice.
It would be,
Yeah.
yeah, except the storms. But anyway, you've got to put yourself in a position so that those things can happen to you. So for the studio, for example, I was doing the podcast, and then I started doing podcast production for someone who runs a networking group. And then, then she introduced me to you, and that's how I met you and a whole bunch of other people. And then, but I constantly talked about it to anybody that would listen. And I was like, I just kept putting it out in the universe. And, we had to rent studios. So we would, we were going to London. We were going, I had a studio that I worked with quite a lot in London in the beginning. We had, more local studios and stuff that I went to with her, and just constantly being focused on that as kind of the direction that I wanted to go. And I think with anything, what it does is you start to make small decisions that you don't even maybe consciously realize will help get you towards your goal
Until you look back.
until you
Yeah.
maybe look back or whatever. But it's like death by a thousand cuts, sort of.
I
In that
love that so much, because I think
you just,
we so often think that we need to make these big, bold moves. And
yeah,
actually the reality is that it's looking back, it's the tiny little things that we
yeah,
do each day that
that's right.
eventually, without even noticing, snowball into
Yeah,
that goal. And I think that's
yeah,
so huge, because um you don't necessarily notice the change. So it's important to track it and all those things,
exactly.
and
And I
just
mean,
stay focused on it.
yeah, it's not perfect. Is it exactly what I want? No, but it doesn't matter. We're doing it. And that's the best thing. And we're getting there and we're going. And I still have larger ambitions and I want to do different things. And I'm still pushing constantly all the time. And I'm thinking about that and talking about that. And you know, eventually I'll get there. And if I don't, that's okay too. You know, um, I watch a lot of MotoGP, and it you probably don't. And
I
anyway,
can't
they've
say I
had
do.
what they're calling is like the biggest comeback in sports history, because this guy had a massive crash, broke his arm, like nearly his arm nearly came off. And it was this massive road to recovery. It was actually so bad he got back on, his arm healed, he got back on the bike. They had actually put his arm wrong, so it was twisted from here. So the bottom of his arm was actually twisted at an angle like that. So he couldn't hold the handlebars in the right way. So he had to re-break his arm to rotate it to put it back in spot. Anyway, massive comeback story. So this guy just won the world championship again, right, for the 7th time. And that it's been a 3-year, road to recovery and all this big story. And they asked him about it. And he said, they asked him what his advice was. And his advice is look, just keep trying. You just have to try. And if you don't achieve, that's okay. At least you tried and you know that you gave it your best. Do you know what I mean? And if you don't get
If
there,
you don't try, you failed already, haven't you? So
exactly. But at least you don't have any regrets and you think, okay, well, at least I gave it a good effort. Because if you don't try and you don't succeed, you'll always have that doubt and you'll always know that you didn't do it. So you combine that with, kind of putting yourself try, and that puts you generally in the right place for lucky things to happen. And who knows where you'll get. I mean, that's my general business wisdom, is just keep going. Say yes to everything.
to wrap this up, and actually it's the perfect point to do this, what we have in the Brand Mixology podcast, and Brand Mixology is all about, I personally don't believe, and there's so many people out there that talk about, this is the formula to success, or this is the silver bullet that will get you what it is that you want in life. And I actually don't believe that that's the case. I think that there is a mix of numerous different things, and I think that is different for every single individual or business, and the mixture is what creates the perfect brand, the perfect recipe for success. So what I'm asking each of my guests to do is to come up with ideally a word, if not a short sentence, but ideally a word of what you would want to put into the mixology. So what is something that you would say, this is the thing that I would want to add to the bucket of success? And then also the opposite to that. So what is the one thing that for you is either the worst piece of advice or the thing that you want to put on ice? So we're going to have
Okay.
a cocktail shaker with all of the success
Nice.
words
Okay.
that create a mixology, and then we're going to put on ice all of the stuff that is not the stuff we want to be doing, or the worst advice you've heard.
Okay.
So what would you, and you can write them down.
Oh, geez, I actually have to use a pen.
You have to use a pen.
When's the last time anybody used
Or
a
maybe
pen?
we can put it on ChatGPT if you like.
Okay, and I get to choose the colors as well.
Yes.
So I'm going to have purple and orange. I guess the orange is the bad and the purple is the good.
We could read into that if we wanted.
Yeah, you can. Well, there's a couple of things come out immediately. 2 words come out immediately. I think since we're trying to kind of talk about video in this, I'm going to say storytelling. Because I think no matter what you do, you still have to tell a good story. and you have to be able to explain to people what it is you do, why you do it, and why they should do it with you.
So would you say that's about owning your story, or just storytelling in general as a concept?
You need to know your story,
Yeah.
but you need to be able to tell it.
Okay. It's a story.
Um,
So that goes into
so
the
that can go
mixology
in.
cocktail.
That can go into the cocktail.
Thank you very much.
Um,
And then what do you want to put on ice? What do you want people to stop doing?
I want people to stop procrastinating.
That's such a difficult one.
It is. But we said it before, done is better than perfect. And I think particularly, again, in the context of the conversation that we've been talking about, particularly with things like a podcast or video or audio or whatever it is, look, we can all come up with a million excuses why not to do something. You just need to pull your finger out and do it.
You can come up with one good reason to do it, then
You don't even need a good reason. Just do it. I work with the youth, with the Creative Tunbridge Wells Youth Board, and one of the kids came up to me and he said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. And he said, how do you motivate yourself to start projects? And I just looked at him and I'm like, mate, I'm 56 years old. I have no idea. I said, there's stuff sitting on my desk that I put off every single day because I don't want to do it. I'm not confident, or for whatever reason, I think it's going to be hard or whatever. And I said, but it's never as bad as I think it's going to be once I've done it.
And that's and I love that somebody young was asking that. Oh God, it missed the ice. That's bad, isn't it? Does that mean that everyone needs to procrastinate?
It's procrastinating, getting in.
Getting in. I mean, brilliant. We did not fix that in advance.
But it really, do you know what I mean? And we all do
I
it.
think we all, and I'm definitely guilty of this, wait for the motivation to come, and that moment might never come. Whereas actually,
make the motivation.
something that I find that works really well, if there's a project, anything that needs doing, even if it's cleaning the house, let's be honest, we're never motivated to do that. We might be motivated by the end result, but that's not enough. What I find is, and actually completely stolen this from Mel Robbins, is she does the 5-second count, which is really good, but it's also just do 5 minutes. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to do the whole project. I tell myself I'm absolutely not going to work an hour on this project. I'm just going to work for 5 minutes. I guarantee it's never 5 minutes. Once you get going, the motivation then comes from the activity. So in answer to that wonderful youth that asked you that, if you're waiting for the motivation, you're going to be waiting a long time, because we can't just. And I say this to my son all the time: is that I don't feel like doing it. It's like, well, welcome to life.
Exactly.
We can't just do things we feel like doing. So I love.
I feel like being a parent, but here we are.
But here we are. Don't really want to do the school run today, but hey. So I love that somebody so young is already asking that type of question. That's amazing. So let's try and stop procrastinating, and let's start telling more stories. And then the production is, I think, a wonderful cherry on the top. But let's get telling stories and connecting as humans, and work with AI. But
yeah. And we can come back and talk about other stuff. Like if you want to talk about how to start a podcast and all that, like whatever, we can talk about that stuff.
100%, because I think there's so many conversations that could get into the nitty gritty. Exactly what tech should people get, how to do podcasting, so many valuable things. Thank you so much, David, for being here today.
Nice to see you.
You would have been here anyway, but
exactly.
Lovely to chat with you.
And can't wait to see where we go from here.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. If it resonated with you, feel free to share it with somebody who might appreciate it too. And of course, as always, liking and subscribing really helps the podcast to grow. It means we can reach even more people. Really look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And until then, let's keep mixing it up and keep building a brand and life we actually want.